Well, we have tenders that we can go to, and only certified wines can go and apply to that tenders.
We have a different type of vineyards, a different type of systems that the vineyards are into. Some of them are more in intense production, and other ones have more space to grow. It produces a lot less per hectare, but it's that balances that bring us some stability and some potential to the projects and to the sustainability that we want to achieve with this project.
We had many signals. We won this beginning of the year a tender in Sweden. Not it's because we are organic, but also because we are sustainable. We have the stamp of sustainability of Wines of Alentejo. So we are showing that for the final client that this is true. This is a honest program that are putting in their tables an honest product.
The economic pillar of sustainability is as critical as the social and environmental pillars. In this interview with former president of the Wines of Alentejo Commission, Francisco Mateus, we talk about how Alentejo represents a David and Goliath struggle to succeed in a sector that is beset by global challenges. Francisco points out that sustainable practices drive savings across the business that can help the bottom line when sales prices go down and costs rise. Another key benefit of WASP certification, as we hear from many certified producers, has been access to new markets where proving you are sustainable is a prerequisite. Please do download the illustrated ebook that accompanies this series. It's free and is intended as a notebook to accompany the journey across Alentejo, gaining insights into the inspiring work that is taking place. This work is improving communities, boosting biodiversity, and demonstrating how producing delicious wines can be part of a wider response to tackle global climate heating. There's a familiar narrative in many, if not all, wine regions at the moment, and I want to hear it through your perspective of what the situation is in Alentejo and what are the main trends that are grabbing your attention.
I'll try to put it on a supply and demand point of view. In the last 5 years, since 2019, so I'll make these figures from 19 till 23, we've been witnessing a trend in increasing the vineyard's surface. We rose 10% in our vineyard surface, which is very, very impressive. And with that, of course, we also increased our grape production, which was more 7% in these last 5 years. Nevertheless, our average yield is not that high. I mean, I'm talking about 6.6 tons per hectare, which is not a huge yield per hectare. Of course, that we had also the wine production increased. We are producing now an average 113 million liters per year. So it's much 6% more than we used to do 5 years ago. But during COVID and 23 and 24, we are watching a decrease in our figures around trade. So I'm talking about 9% less than we used to do 5 years ago or 10 years ago. The domestic markets until 2023, we had this decrease of 7%. So we were not selling much wine in Portugal. In exports, things were a little bit better. We were just selling around 1%, which is, well, it's a figure, but it's not. I will not say that it is a trend. Nevertheless, I think that the major concern is about the prices that wine and grapes are being sold. From 2024, this year, comparing to last year, we had in bulk wine, we had a decrease in price of 30%, which is huge. And if we see it with the inflation, we see that inflation since 2020, since COVID, increased 16%. So what we're dealing with, we have producers spending more money to produce their grapes and their wines, but the prices of bulk wine are decreasing in an impressive way. It's like minus 30%, which is huge. And I think that this is the reason why Alentejo wine producers accepted to send some wine to crisis distillation that we had in 2020, 2021, 2023, and again this year. So it's a lot of wine that's going to be distilled. I think that with these prices and the difficulty to put this wine in the market, producers are opting to distill the wine, get some money, and well, try to do from now on the best they can to get more sales in Portugal and also abroad. If you look at this last 12 months, we see that there's an increase in Alentejo wine sales in Portugal, an increase in volume. We are almost in pre-COVID levels. We are growing 6%. Exports are down. We had a very good 2023 and 2022 year, and we are down 12% in volume. So with these figures, what I can say, well, pretty sure about this, it's definitely we are producing more, we are having more wine, we have more vineyards. Trade is not helping us, not only in Portugal, but also worldwide. Exports are not growing. I mean, we are stable. We had 22 and 23 with nice figures, but we are not growing from there. And in Portugal, I think we are benefiting from the tourism activity. I mean, Portugal, as you all know, is beating records every year with tourists coming to our country. And of course, that restaurants and supermarkets are selling more wine to all those millions of people coming to our country. So we see that, yeah, on average, we are going to, in the domestic market, we are going to the numbers we had in 2019, but with higher prices that they don't compensate the inflation. So I would say that wine producers are not having as much profit as they did in the past. So this is, of course, challenging for the entire wine region. It's different from the point of view of a small producer or a big producer. The entry levels in Portugal are the ones that are growing. We have around 60% of wines sold in Portugal has an average price below 2.75 euros per bottle, which is not that much. But unfortunately, I'll have to say that's the money that average consumer of wine in Portugal is willing to pay. So we see that people are more concerned about economic turmoil that we see around the world, war, interest rates going up, inflation went up very high in last years. Now it's more stable, but we see that people don't have the same money they used to have in their pockets. So I think that we are going to have this next few years. It's for every one region. We'll have this very challenging years because we definitely need to look at ways so that grape growers and wine growers and wineries can have more profits and have more money. Otherwise, I think they will just tend to invest less, and probably that will also lead us to a concentration phenomena. Small countries are going to be bought by bigger companies. And maybe we'll watch in the future a different fabric on the wine sector here in Alentejo.
The side of sustainability that we don't always think of, it's the economic side of it, the market side of it. If you had to look for the most viable sort of route out of this, assuming that you can drive sales, is it domestic, is it exports? Where do you see the main opportunity? If there is one.
Well, there's always an opportunity. You know, watching long-term figures around the domestic market, I strongly believe that the growths we are achieving every year are because of the tourists that we are receiving. If we look, for instance, for the figures we had during COVID 2020 and 2021, I would say those are the figures from the Portuguese consumers, because we didn't have that much foreign tourists coming to our country. So I think that there's some space to grow in Portugal, probably with different generations starting to drink wine. We should be quite creative to be able to supply them with different categories of wine. I'm talking about wines with no alcohol, wines that are not that intense on your palate, things that you can drink in a more relaxed way, not trying to supply people with those very fruity, quite robust wines that we are used to from the Alentejo reds, for instance. And we also see that people are drinking more white wine, rosé wine, sparkling wine. We've been experiencing great results in white wine and rosé wine here in Alentejo. Not that much in sparkling because it's just a very small niche in our supply to the market. But I think that I'll call it a more modern and fashionable way of dealing with grapes. I think that we will need to take those grapes and try to make these products that are more acceptable by young wine consumers. And of course, that's not something that you can just change in 1 year or 2 years. But I think that maybe part of the solution we can put in Alentejo. With sustainability, I would say that some producers, all these figures I just mentioned, inflation going up. I believe that more developed producers in sustainability terms, with all the work they've done these last years, I believe that they are having some savings on energy, on waste, on the price of bottles, and probably they are now more well prepared to face these difficulties in the market, because they already changed their way of producing and their way of dealing with things. And right now, when the market is demanding for cheaper wine and they have to supply that, most probably they are more well prepared to do it and be able to earn some money doing that. I don't think that's something that they can handle for a long time. But for now, I think that their posture towards the way the market is going, I think they're in a better position than the ones that did not start looking at those issues and try to make some savings while being better for the planet and the soils and the plants and the community around them.
In terms of the sustainability program, when it started, it was this almost obscure project that was trying to help producers in Alentejo. It's now got the attention of international awards bodies. You're participating as a lead partner in a sustainability in drinks conference in London. These are what we might call the David and Goliath situation, because you're this tiny region in southern Portugal, which a lot of people haven't really heard of. We know Lisbon, we know the Douro, we know other parts of Portugal. Alentejo is a massive area. We're not quite familiar with it. And yet here we are seeing the sustainability program grow, win awards. And it's like it's developed its own story, and that in itself is attracting producers, which is also very in step with consumers of what they want to see in products they're buying. Do you think that there's part of this difficult transition is in that direction?
Yeah, definitely. I was saying that if we try to deal with grapes, to transform them in different products, or at least different from the products that we are producing right now. And I think that's a part of the solution. I think there's another part of the solution, which is telling the world how we are getting on the wine production. If we are dealing with young consumers and you are supplying them, offering them different kinds of wine, lighter wines, not that have any color. Also, the alcohol is also an issue that I think people are much more looking at it. I mean, I see with my friends. I know every time we drink a wine with 14 degrees of alcohol, people just oh, this is quite strong. So younger generations, they are willing for more lighter wines. I will call it this way, and I think they pay much more attention to the way things are produced. today, in our days. So Alentejo, as in the wine, in the Portuguese sector context, I think that we have a very good tool to help our producers to show the world how sustainable we are getting. Because 5, 10 years, if you have this wine region that can cope with different kinds of wine being sustainably produced in a region that we all know is in the heart of climate changes, I think that we have good chances of taking Alentejo to the world and show also other wine regions in the world that size in this subject does not matter. I mean, yes, we are a small region. Alentejo is about 0.3% of the world surface of vineyards and 0.35% of the wine production. But as you were saying, and I have to agree with you. Yes, this is a David versus Goliath challenge, but I think that in the past 10 years, I mean, the results are there. We are getting attention from importers, from other organizations that deal with wine. And I believe that we are doing a good job, but we have to link that job to the bottles of wine and show it to people. I think that that's also a part of the solution we can face, and we have tools for it, and take Alentejo far away in the market.
When I first met you a few years ago, sitting at the table, and you said, with a glass of Alentejo wine, you said, there's no reason why we can't become a totally sustainable region. Now, I've come back a few years later in terms of a close inspection of the producers, the certified producers, and it's pretty mind-blowing what's going on. How far do you think you are to realizing that? And is it part of this economic sustainability mission as well?
Yeah. Like I'm starting from the bottom, from grape growers, and Alentejo. We have a huge number of very small grape growers. I would say that around 50% of our grape growers, they have an area of wines which is less than 5 hectares. So we have a lot of people doing that, and we are aware that it's much more difficult for those persons which are older, which with this current situation will look at the future and say, oh, shall I keep on this? Is my son, daughter going to succeed me in this business? So that's a social challenging that we are also going to have in Alentejo, or we are having it already. So I would say it's much more difficult to reach those persons and welcoming aboard the WASP program. So what we are doing is, because most of those people are working with cooperatives, so they deliver their grapes to the cooperative, and we are supporting those cooperatives, supporting those producers, at least a group of them, to be more developed in what sustainability concerns. So we are trying to make those guys the leaders of those cooperatives so that the other ones can follow them. So we have 5 cooperatives in Alentejo. One is already certified. I mean, they reached at least 60% of their area, and they achieved it to get a certification. So I think that's the cherry in the top of the cake. It's what we are more concerned. It's the things they do every day. When they reach a more developed level of sustainability, those grapes can be used to make sustainably produced wine. We are giving step after step. I think that most probably during this year or next year, we can have 2 more cooperatives in a very high level of sustainability, and also the grape growers. And this may be, some kind of a trigger so that people will keep on producing grapes in Alentejo. So I definitely think that on this goal of being a sustainable region, I really believe that we can achieve it. I'm sure that we cannot have 100% of grape growers on board. It's more easy when you're talking about wineries. But I would say that by today, we have about 35% of our wine production, and I mean wineries and vineyards, 35% is already produced in a totally sustainably way, which is 1/3 of our production in just a few years. So I think that number will increase in the future. And with the help of the markets, and I will say essentially markets that look at sustainability in a very concerned way, in Nordic countries, in Europe, the United States, Canada, I think those markets may also help us to find more placement for those wines. And also, I think that Portugal, sooner or later, the Portuguese consumers will have to start to pay attention to what sustainability means in the wine sector. So in 2024, we don't see that much young consumers looking at sustainability certified seal that our bottles can show. But I believe that in a few years, people will start to pay attention to that and will be demanding for that kind of wine production. And of course, at Alentejo, with all these years of work we have been doing, I think that we are in a very good position to connect with those people and show them that Alentejo is a sustainable region on wine production. And also, I might say, it's also a goal that it's being settled for tourism in Alentejo. So tourism and wine in Alentejo are strong industries. I think that working together, we can show it to consumers.
Well, look, that's a fantastic place to end on. So thank you very much.